You are Locked On Lions Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Detroit on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And there it is, the culmination of the most memorable Lions regular season in the history of the franchise. A 31-9 statement win on Sunday Night Football over the Minnesota Vikings. Welcome in to a live Locked On Lions postcast. I am your host, Jake Rietma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Rietma. And this is the Locked On Lions postgame show. As always, fired up to have you along for a memorable show. And as we know, the Lions punch their ticket in the number one seed, a first round bye, and win back-to-back NFC North titles for the first time in franchise history. We're going to go over it all. The defense dominated. Amik Robertson, player of the game in my book. We'll talk about how he shut down Justin Jefferson in this high-powered Vikings offense. And, oh yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, 4 touchdowns. What a sight to behold. And the Lions lock up the NFC North and the number one seed. It all comes your way next on the live Locked On Lions postcast. But as always, we thank you for making the Locked On Lions postcast your post-game destination, free and available wherever you get your podcast on Locked On Sports Detroit. And oh yeah, the audio version on Locked On Lions, which is also where you hear Matt Derry. Can't wait to hear his thoughts on this one as well. Make sure you subscribe, Locked On Sports Detroit, and of course, Locked On Lions. Today's episode is brought to you by and made possible by LinkedIn. That's right. LinkedIn is today's sponsor. And don't forget about LinkedIn. Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. And oh baby, if you're like me after that first half, you're thinking, okay, let's flip the switch. Let's turn it on. Defense, I think the hockey term is when you have a goalie standing on his head. The defense was standing on their heads collectively. I mean, the Vikings had 4 trips inside the red zone and several inside the 5-yard line. And this Lions defense stood tall time and time again. Shout out Aaron Glenn. His game plan was brilliant. He challenged the playmakers for the Minnesota Vikings, Justin Jefferson and company, and guys like Amik Robertson and the secondary they were the ones applying the pressure to the Minnesota Vikings. Sam Darnold was off all night. Admittedly, he missed a few throws early that could have been touchdowns, and it's a totally different game, of course. I know if there's any Vikings fans watching on Locked On Lions postcast, that's going to be the first thing they say. But for 60 minutes, this Lions defense was the strength of the Detroit Lions as a team, and that's something we haven't said in 17 games this regular season. But despite all the injuries, despite all the adversity, everything that has been preached about this Lions team and their culture came through on full display for the nation to see on Sunday Night Football. And most importantly, now the playoffs will, in fact, run through Ford Field, which, make no mistake about it, is one of the best home field advantages in all of the National Football League. The crowd was into it. It was electric. If anybody was at Ford Field, I wowould love to hear from you firsthand how that experience was and what you thought throughout the course of this game, because I tweeted out at halftime, I thought the Lions played a C- at best first half, and that's just because the defense made so many plays. Offensively, Jared Goff, and we'll get to that more in a minute, but man, I'm a little bit concerned with the way Jared Goff played. I think hopefully it's just one of those bad games that he throws away, but Goff was not himself in the first half. Moment looked pretty big for him, but hey, it slowed down for him in the second half, and there were some really incredible drives that this offense put together. And when you have a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, wow, you got to love that. And of course, this Lions team is going to stick to who they are. A couple of really important 4th down conversions, and Dan Gamble does what Dan Gamble does, and the Lions convert some huge fourth downs. But all over the place, I apologize. Yeah, the more excited I get after a win, sometimes the harder it is to collect the thoughts. But hey, everything that needed to happen tonight for the Lions happened. The defense makes a statement. A little bit worried about Terrion Arnold. Obviously, he left with the injured foot and did not return. And so you had guys like Kendall Vildor in the secondary. But hey, this defense, that's a good Minnesota team. We know that. Obviously, 14-2 coming into this game and finished the season 14-3. And they score 9 points in the most important game of their season. So incredible job. Hats off to the defense. Hats off to Aaron Glenn and the guys that got some pressure. It was the Darius Smith early with that huge sack on Darnold. Muhammad had a big sack. You can't say enough about the effort 1 through 11 for this Detroit Lions defense. Alex Anzalone, of course, having him back in the lineup was huge. He led the team with 7 tackles, but more than that, just his presence on the field altogether throughout the course of the game was so important. Kirby Joseph, yes, he didn't have any interceptions tonight, but he played a heck of a game, 6 tackles for him. Brian Branch, the list goes on. Jack Campbell, and I've already talked about Amik Robertson and what a game he had. He was on post game with Melissa Stark as one of the players of the game. So you look at this one from a summary point of view. You had to get a win. It was ugly in the first half, but some game controlling and game sealing drives in that second half when you had to have it. The play-by-play would tell you, okay, first half, not very pretty. Obviously, the Lions punt their first possession, then go down and score, but so on and so forth. And it's a 10-6 game at the halftime break. Thanks to the Vikings' poor special teams with the kick out of bounds, the Lions able to go 30 yards on that 3-play drive to conclude the first half, and Jake Bates sticks a field goal, which you love, 53 yards for Jake Bates. I believe it was a 53-yarder for, 48-yarder for the Lions to go up 10-6. Then the second half begins. You get the Lions again forcing that turnover on downs inside the red zone. But Jared Goff again with that interception, and it was on the first play of the drive. This is where you're scratching your head because the defense had just done so much to turn momentum back to the Lions, and Goff, and maybe it was J-Mo stopping the route, whatever it was, but it was double coverage in the middle of the field and one of the easier interceptions. So that one's on Goff, his second pick of the game. Vikings come down and get a field goal. I thought this was another huge stand by the Lions defense to give up just a field goal when the Vikings had such tremendous field position. Only 21-yard drive. And again, it's the defense making plays. Lions answer with that touchdown. That was huge. It was a drive they had to have, 13 plays, 70 yards, 7:25 taken off the clock. And this is where the Lions offensive line starts to lean on the Vikings a little bit and starts to take their soul a little bit. And Jared Goff looked like himself on that drive. He was connecting with Gibbs out of the backfield. He was connecting with Laporta. He was connecting with Amon-Ra, with Jameson Williams, and that's when this Lions offense is at its best. So that 13-play, 70-yard drive that made it 17-9 was huge. Now, here's where I think Dan Campbell, in a weird way, intimidates opposing coaches, because you saw Kevin O'Connell go for it a number of times and come up empty. And in a situation where I felt like he should have gone for it, they settle for the field goal, and it's a missed field goal. So not only were you going for the 3 points there of the Vikings to make it a 17-12 game, but you missed the field goal. That gives the Lions all the momentum, and they march right down and score in 6 plays, a 59-yard drive that culminates with the touchdown for Jahmyr Gibbs around the left side for 13 yards, which, by the way, incredible blocking on that play. Brock Wright and the left side of that Lions offensive line just committed murders at the point of attack, which was awesome to see. And so again, just like they did in that had-to-have-it drive in the third quarter, it was a soul-taking drive to put the Lions up 24-9. And then the defense again, standing on its head, forcing the punt. Lions come down, scored the touchdown, and we're rolling. 31-9. Incredible performance by this Lions defense, especially in the first half when the Lions offense was completely out of sync, and then complementary football in that second half, which is what has made this Lions team so good to earn a 15-2 record, another NFC North title back-to-back times for the first time in franchise history. And most importantly, and people can debate me if they want, but of all this, everything's great. The 15-2 record, the NFC North, that's all great, but a first round bye. This is a team that hasn't been off since week 5. So not only are they decimated and have they been decimated with injuries, but they haven't had a bye week since week 5. It's the earliest you can have a bye week. And the Lions were done no favors in the scheduling department of things. And so this first round bye is huge. So love that. It was the type of night that you're going to remember as far as the number of things that went right, what you had to have, and just the fitting touches on an incredible regular season. And now, most importantly, a first round bye, and the NFC goes through Ford Field. The Lions will play home playoff games. But we got a lot of comments to get into. We're just getting started. I want to talk more about what this win means and break down that Jahmyr Gibbs performance, because the 4 touchdowns is just the tip of the iceberg. He did so much tonight. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started on a live Locked On Lions postcast here on Locked On Sports Detroit. And this episode of the Locked On Lions postcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. That's right. Growing your small business in 2025 comes down to how well you can hire. Let's face it, better hires start with smarter insights. That's where LinkedIn comes in. With the strongest hiring data available, LinkedIn helps you identify the right candidates, giving you the confidence to make the best decisions for your business. I bet you Brad Holmes used LinkedIn when he was hiring his staff because, man, he made the right choices, right? I've used LinkedIn Jobs myself, and I can tell you it is a game changer when it comes to hiring the right fit. Small businesses are wearing a lot of hats, so every hire is crucial, like the Ben Johnson hire. Maybe one of the most important hires, and the Dan Campbell hire. The list goes on. LinkedIn gets that. That's why they connect you with the best candidates using data you won't find anywhere else, from unique skills and interests to the connections you share. LinkedIn helps you find the right person for the job. In fact, 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high-quality candidates. Right now, hire smarter this year and find your next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. How about that? For free. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNFL. This episode of the Locked On Lions postcast is also brought to you by Rocket Money. Let me guess, Rocket Money has helped you find some subscriptions you forgot about, or that maybe you were paying for twice. I know they've helped me because, look, it's easy. You got a lot going on. It's 2025. You're watching the Lions. You're watching the NFL playoffs, the Pistons, whatever it is. And those subscriptions can fall through the cracks. I know it's happened to me. And Rocket made it easy to track them all down. And it's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Doesn't get much better than that. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year in 2025. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money, people. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Lions earn the NFC North title. They clinch a number 1 seed in the NFC and finish the season 15-2. And not that it matters because the Chiefs were resting everybody, but they also lost today. So They both finish 15-2 for the regular season. But that doesn't matter. What matters is the Lions made a statement at home. The defense played its best game of the season. Aaron Glenn is a genius. And I had somebody text me. I don't know. I was texting with so many people during I think it was actually my brothers. Great group chat going on with the brothers. I know they're watching. But Aaron Glenn, if he wants a head coaching job after tonight, I don't even think he has to apply. Doesn't even need to interview, right? But that being said, wow, what a game by the defense. And I think, too, and we'll get into this a little bit more because I want to get to your comments. I appreciate everybody patiently waiting to get into the comments. But Sam Darnold, 18 of 41, was under pressure all night, just 166 yards passing, and was sacked twice. And that's, again, an explosive offense. Kevin O'Connell is a quarterback whisperer. Justin Jefferson to be locked down by Amik Robertson, 3 catches, 54 yards. That's it. He was targeted 9 times. Just incredible. And you got to compare that to, and I think Mike Tirico even said this, where the Lions, and maybe it was Chris Collinsworth, the Lions offensively were off tonight. Everybody can agree to that. They had a couple of good drives, sure, but they're so good and the expectations are so high that 31 points, listen, that feels like a disappointment with this Lions offense, which is pretty crazy to think about out loud. Rushing the ball, Jahmyr Gibbs, 23 carries, 139 yards. He was a workhorse, 3 touchdowns. And then, he was involved in the passing game as well. 5 catches, 31 yards, and that critical touchdown catch on 4th down, which he shook Andrew Van Ginkel. And I tweeted this out. Brian Flores, very good defensive coordinator, obviously known for blitzing, but you look at the splits of Jared Goff against Brian Flores the last 3 games and now 4 games, he has taken advantage of Brian Flores' defense when they blitz. You saw that on a couple of different occasions tonight, probably most notable, that critical 4th down where Jahmyr Gibbs was matched up on Andrew Van Ginkel, who's a tremendous player, by the way. He was awesome last year for Miami. He's been awesome this year for the Minnesota Vikings, and he almost had that pick 6. He's had 4 pick 6s in the last 2 years as a defensive end, which is just crazy. But anyways, matching him up on Jahmyr Gibbs is not favorable for anybody, let alone your best pass rusher. So interesting note there that once again, Ben Johnson was 1 step ahead of Brian Flores tonight, and Jared Goff, for that matter, even though it wasn't his best game by any stretch of the imagination, he took advantage of the Brian Flores defense when they blitz. But let's get to those comments. We got a ton of people chiming in, and I'm glad to have it. So get your comments in. If you're at Ford Field, let me know. Jeff Wilford, one of our loyal Locked On Lions postcast viewers and listeners, the Lions are number 1. It will be tough for any team to come to Detroit and win. A lot of people saying that, and the Lions have to go out and back that up, which I believe they will. Demetrius McNeil, have a weekend. Pistons over the Timberwolves, Lions over the Vikings. I'm very sure the Lions will see the Vikings again. Yeah, that's interesting. And Dan Campbell even said that to Kevin O'Connell, which Dan Campbell's always all class. And so is Kevin O'Connell for that matter. But you love to see that. Dan Campbell said, probably see you again. So there you go. Rufus T. Cat says, what a night. That game was grit central. It was. This defense, my goodness, exemplifying true grit. You got to love it. Brad Mamarera, Anzalone. Yeah, him being back is so critical and so huge for this defense. That was great to see, no doubt about it. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights checking in. Your Brother in Christ podcast. Hi, Jake. Met during the MLB playoffs. The Lord will bless us with the Lombardi. All right. Hope we got the Lord on our side. There we go. Jeff Wilford, we needed the 1 week off to get some guys healed up. Yeah, I hope Terry and Arnold's okay as well, because, I mean, this secondary was already depleted, right? We all know that. So you can't keep losing guys in the secondary. G-Dog, what a defensive performance. Those goal line stands had me fired up. Me too, brother. I was screaming at the TV. I was fist bumping the whole thing. And that's what makes it fun, watching a team give it everything they've got. The Voyagers Blueprint says we will not be stopped. There you go. Jeff Wilford, Lions controlled the second half of the game tonight. Indeed, they did. What a second half performance by the Lions. I mean, they outscore the Vikings 21-3 in that second half, and it felt like even more than that, really just taking control. Lions win. That's from Betty. Bees 9. Our defense shut up all the Debbie Downers. There you go. And I'm not one, and you guys know me by now, I'm not one that I like to do the trash talking. Okay, maybe a little bit, but the Vikings deserve to be trash talked a little bit. I mean, to spend $2 million and buy whatever it was, 2,000 tickets. I mean, number one, okay, maybe you're trying to do something nice for the season ticket holders, but it just felt like a very, very pathetic attempt to try to mitigate the Lions' home field advantage. Like, I mean, you didn't see the Lions buying out what is it, US Bank Stadium to do the skull chant, you know? I mean, that's just, I don't know. I felt like that was a bit bizarre. And every fan base is going to have people that run their mouth online. That's what social media is 99% of the time. But it just seemed like there was a lot of Vikings smack talking. We're coming to your house, so on and so forth. So hold this L that cost your franchise $2 million. So there you have it. And I know Albert Breer and a couple other NFL national pundits were talking about how the Vikings didn't break any rules, even though the Lions had them investigated. But again, it's a bizarre notion to buy out $2 million worth of tickets and then distribute them to your season ticket holders. Because again, I understand the magnitude of the game, but it didn't work. And again, also too, if you're doing the math, like, what is there, 65,000 at Ford Field tonight? Is 2,000 Viking fans really going to make that big of a difference? I don't know. It just seems kind of funny to me because in the end, they hold the L. All right, Jack Arnau's paying the bills. Absolutely. You got to love that. Benjamin Brewer, got his mojo back. Goff got his mojo back in the second half, and passes were crisp and on target. Good night, Vikings. 3 field goals. You've got to be kidding. Yeah, again, I was really surprised that early in the game, I understand, you want to take a chance, but that's where it felt like O'Connell kind of got crossed between, do I go for it? Okay, I've got to get some points. And then again, the field goal that he ended up going for in that second half was a big miss. So there you have it. Benjamin Brewer, Goff. Oh yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. Oh, my main man, Kyle Shreen. Just think, y'all, the Lions could possibly only have to play one more game without Aiden Hutchinson. Yeah, Aiden Hutchinson on the sidelines. That was neat to see for sure. But Anzalone on the field, that was even more neat to see. I can't wait to see Aiden Hutchinson on the field if that happens. But understand that is, again, it depends on, I think they had a sideline hit about that regarding his status, and he said he's manifesting it, and so you're hoping for the best there, but that was a gruesome injury he suffered against the Dallas Cowboys. Smith Boy, Detroit Lions Nation, Matt Hicks, the defense is unstoppable with Anzalone wearing that green dot. Yeah, you can't say enough about the impact he had, and again, Amik Robertson was phenomenal. Mary Jo Isaacson, my grandma, she was at the game. The Lions are the best team. On to Nola. All right, Grandma, let's pump the brakes a little bit, though. We got a first-round bye first, and then got to continue to take care of business, and I believe this Lions team will, and that's what's so great about Dan Campbell is he has this team in the right headspace, the right mindset. The culture is stronger than ever, and it is such a blast to be a part of. Lions could still face the Vikings one last time. Yep, that's absolutely the case. Lions will have the first round bye. I believe it's Eagles, Packers, Commanders, Bucks, and then the Monday night game of wildcard weekend will be Rams and Vikings at SoFi Stadium. So there you have it. David Dykema says, I hope the Vikings win against the Rams. Yeah, it's tough to beat a good team 3 times. That's an old cliche in sports, but it certainly is a possibility that the Lions could see the Minnesota Vikings again, but we know it'll be at Ford Field where the Lions will be throughout the 2025 NFL playoffs. So awesome stuff there. I want to wrap it up with a final breakdown of everything. Look ahead to this NFL playoff spot and what the Lions can have in store moving forward. Lions beat the Vikings in one of the most highly anticipated games of the regular season, 31-9, the final in this one. Don't go anywhere. We tie a bow on it next and look ahead to the playoffs here on the live Locked On Lions postcast on Locked On Sports Detroit. This episode of the Locked On Lions postcast is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You know by now, it's FanDuel. Listen up. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, and the NFL playoffs are here, my friends, officially, now that the Lions and Vikings concluded the 2024 regular season. right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Visit the website and find out for yourself. What I like is, Lions money line is always an easy go-to. The player props, the anytime touchdown scorers, Jahmyr Gibbs, that's a good one. He had 4 touchdowns today. And don't let that stop when the playoffs begin. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The Lions beat the Minnesota Vikings. Not going to get tired of saying that, and not going to get tired of saying that the Lions have a first round bye. How about it? Great stuff there. And they finished the regular season 15-2 with really a memorable way to close it out tonight at home in front of a ruckus crowd in a game you had to have. And I was talking about this with some buddies leading up to this game, that the NFL playoff format, as we look ahead to the playoffs, I think it needs some tweaking, because there's a little bit too much emphasis, I think, placed on the divisional winners getting a home playoff game. And I'll use the example, and we definitely would have been discussing this more had the Lions. We don't have to worry about that because obviously the Lions won. But for Minnesota to go 14-3 and now not host a playoff game, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who play in the lousy NFC South, are hosting a playoff game, or the Rams, who didn't have as good of a record out of the NFC West, able to host a playoff game, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you see this, it seems like repeatedly. But to fall to the number 5 seed for Minnesota, it doesn't make sense, especially compared to some of the teams that will be hosting playoff games. But no tears for the Minnesota Vikings. If they would have taken care of business, then they would have had to worry about it, like the Lions did, 15-2, and will host as the number 1 seed, home field advantage throughout the playoffs, which is great to see. All right. Couple more comments to get to before we wrap it up. That's Salt Free Studios. Much needed bye week after the earliest bye. Seeing Hutch on the sidelines was great. Indeed, it was. Go Lions. Absolutely. That's from Charles Oxford. And yeah, that you're exactly right. And the last thing I'll say about Goff, and I think he's one of those quarterbacks that shows the resiliency and the ability to bounce back, which is so crucial when you don't have your A game early. And this defense kept the Lions in it for long enough before that offense could take over. And we know JG has a short memory. He'll be back, and looking for this offense really in a game they played. They're up to maybe a C- aside from a couple of really impressive drives. That's an offense that can outscore just about anybody, and that will continue to be the strength of this team. And if the defense plays like that, look out. Listen, it's the NFL playoffs. Anything can happen. We all know what the expectations are: to run through the NFC at home, get to the Super Bowl, and bring home the Lombardi Trophy for the first time in franchise history. We all know it. I think it's fine to say it out loud and to start manifesting it. We believe it. But tonight was a huge step for that. So in summary, Amik Robertson and the defense, incredible. Aaron Glenn coached his ass off. Incredible, brilliant game plan. Offensively struggled in the first half. Jahmyr Gibbs was a workhorse, 4 touchdowns. He's just completely stepped into that number 1 back position, even in the absence of David Montgomery. Hopefully he can be back again with at some point in the playoffs as this team continues to get more and more healthy. Having Anzalone back on that defense was huge. They get some pressure on Sam Darnold, Zadarius Smith, Muhammad, both with sacks. Great stuff there. And the secondary locked down a really potent passing attack. And Sam Darnold struggled. He was off tonight. But that's the way you break it down, and that's the way for the Detroit Lions. You leave no doubt. A 31-9 win over the Minnesota Vikings, dominant in all facets, and special teams was really good. I should have said that earlier, but Jake Bates, tremendous. He's been a steady kicker all season long. And I didn't realize this until Tirico said it on the broadcast, but set the record for the most points in Lions history, which makes sense because this offense has been so good. And Bates has had some really good field goal games as well. So there you have it. Lions beat the Minnesota Vikings, back-to-back NFC North champions for the first time in franchise history. Number 1 seed in the NFC. First round bye, so they'll be resting up during Wild Card weekend. And I can't wait for a postseason edition of the Locked On Lions postcast. Until then, make sure you're tuned in to the Locked On Sports Detroit YouTube page for Pistons reaction shows. And hard to believe, but pitchers and catchers report in a little bit. So we'll have some Locked On Tigers postcast coming up. But right now, our priority, of course, on the Detroit Lions and the Detroit Pistons. So tremendous job. The Detroit Lions beat the Minnesota Vikings 31-9, 15-2, 7-2 at home, undefeated road record for the regular season. What a memorable night. Jahmyr Gibbs, 4 touchdowns. Defense was amazing. Amik Robertson, Alex Anzalone, and company. You love to see it. So have a wonderful night. Thanks so much for tuning in. As always, check out Locked On Lions with Matt Derry. Make sure you like Locked On Sports Detroit. If you missed anything, it's all on the YouTube page. It's all on the corresponding audio platforms, free and available wherever you get your podcast. And drop me a follow on Twitter at Jake_Riepma. And I'll see you next time on the Locked On Sports Detroit page. Have a wonderful night.